everybody, this is Jen. Welcome to the homestead and welcome to my channel. So today I am standing by my beautiful willow tree and I'm going to be discussing on how we use willow as a natural remedy. So follow me along right here on Garden Jen's Journey. Alright, so willow. Many of you might know it as weeping willow because of how it looks, but I'm pretty sure most of you are familiar with a willow tree, or even pussy willows are kind of in the same family. This behind me is a young tree. It's not quite weeping yet, but it's getting there. It does have some stuff that's starting to weep. This is about 5 years old, I think is what it is. So it's a nice sized tree. It really is a huge tree for the age. And we have another one in the other part of the yard that's about 3 years old. And it's a good sized tree already. But it's not at the size of where it starts weeping like some of those huge willows you see along riverbanks and in the fields. But we can still use it for herbal remedies. Now, in case you were not aware, willows are wonderful for pain relief. Willows are where aspirin comes from. The compound acetylsalic acid comes from the willow tree. It's what they make now in labs using chemistry to make acetylsalic acid, which is your over-the-counter aspirin. Now, this particular plant has some wonderful properties because it's different than the aspirin that you buy in the store. Because you have the acetylsalic acid with the other compounds that are within the willow, it does not have the stomach altering problems or blood thinning problems that regular aspirin has. So if you can't take aspirin because it's a blood thinner or it bothers your stomach, you can try a little bit of willow bark and see how it goes. But always make sure you refer to a physician first before doing so. So how do you harvest willow? I mean, what do you use on it? Well, you use the bark. And I'm not talking about this hard bark here on the trunk there. Kind of hard to see behind me, but not talking about the trunk or the big hard branches. We're not talking about that. What we're talking about is the bark, actually the inner bark of the young branches. Basically your weeping branches, your new growth. And of course the wind is going to pick up on me here. So I'm going to show you some of the newer growth. I already harvested quite a bit of willow today because I'm getting ready for the winter when I can't harvest the willow. So, but let's see, right here, this is about the size of a branch that you want. As I said, you can see it's starting to weep. But you want a branch that is no bigger than your pinky finger, if I can get that in there. So about that size, and you want to make sure that there's no growths or mold or any damage on them. There's another branch. Let me back up so I can show it to you. I just saw it. So, oh, here it is. So if it has one of these on it, you don't want to use that particular branch for your herbal remedies. Now, like I said, I've already harvested some branches earlier today, and I'm going to take you inside out of this wind and show you exactly how to get the parts that you want for herbal remedies. Okay, so I'm going to show you how we get the bark off this branch piece. I harvested quite a few branches and I just cut them up into smaller pieces to work with. And You can use a standard, like if you have a Leatherman's knife or a hunting knife or outdoorsy kind of knife, you can definitely use that. What I'm using is just a kitchen paring knife. It is kind of sharp, so you definitely have to be careful with it. Some people have asked me, can you use a peeler to peel this? And the answer is no, because a peeler takes off too thick of a shaving. And with this, you have to take off a really, really thin shaving to separate the outer bark from the inner bark, which is what we are using. So you have to basically whittle the branch to get that outer bark off to leave the inner bark. So I'm going to show you kind of how I do that. So you want to be very careful. And some people do it away from themselves because they don't have good knife skills, which is perfectly fine. But you're just taking that very outermost dark green part off. And you have to be careful of the knots where maybe some other branches were growing, because if you catch those wrong, you definitely can cut yourself. And sometimes you can get it where you can grab a piece and it'll peel the rest of the way down the branch, but other times it doesn't. So you just work with it. Alright, so I believe you kind of get the idea here. I'm not going to do this one on camera the whole way because that would take a bit of time. But I do have another one that I have done. So you can see these are very, very, very thin shavings. So I have another one that we have done already ahead of time. So we're basically going to do the same thing with this that we did with this. There's a thin layer of what is called the new bark, the inner bark, which is on this between the green outer bark and the wood. So you basically do the same thing we just did. And you'll see the difference when you start whittling this away, as I call it. Because the inner bark is green. It's bright, bright green. And then the wood is white. Or a cream color, off-white color. And sometimes people do this and scrape it, but I find it's just easier to slide my knife this way. But whatever works for you. I mean, you know yourself and your knife skills, so whatever works for you, just as long as you do not cut yourself. Now a branch this size here, this little piece here, will be enough to make 1 to 2 cups of tea. So you use about you use about 1 teaspoon of these shavings. So okay, so this size will make 1 cup of tea. But you can dilute it a little more if you are sensitive to aspirin. I'm catching on the burrs there. All right. We're almost there. Doesn't take that long once you get going. It's just getting it started. All right. Slow and steady wins the race. You don't want to go too fast because you don't want to get the wrong parts in your herbal remedy tea. Alright. Yeah, I don't like scraping it that way because it catches too much and that could be an injury waiting to happen. So we're just going to slide it this way. Alright. That one section keeps evading me. Alright. That's pretty good. Got almost all of it off. Okay. So we got most of it off. There's just a little bit left, but that's not a big deal. And so what you can do is this, about a teaspoon here, maybe 2 teaspoons. You could probably, if you're out in the woods or something and you needed pain relief, I would probably split this into 2 portions so you have some for later. But you take this and you steep it in a hot cup of water for about 10 minutes. You don't want the water boiling. You want it just below a simmer, just when you start seeing the bubbles around your pot. So you steep that for about 10 to 15 minutes and then you strain it and you drink it. And because this is made into a tea where it's water soluble, this works a lot faster than a pill does, because a pill of course has to be dissolved in your stomach to enter the bloodstream. This, once you put it into your water and infuse it, it's already in a dissolved state, so it enters the bloodstream a lot faster. Now another thing that you can do, especially I recommend, you know, if you're in the northern areas, is you can harvest this just like we've done and then put it in your dehydrator on a very low setting. I usually dehydrate my medicinal herbs at about 80 degrees. And this doesn't take very long because it's very, very thin shavings. This takes maybe about 4-6 hours or something like that. And you just dehydrate it and then you can put it into a mason jar. You see my jar's empty, which is why we are doing this today. And you can save it for later use. Now because this is bark and not like a leaf material or flowers or whatever, this won't get like really, really tiny. It'll stay basically this size. It'll just be dry. So it's basically going to be the same measurement whether you use fresh or you use the dry, as long as it's like this. Now if you grind it up, you know, into smaller particles, then I would say only use a ½ teaspoon. But if you leave it in more of its whole form like this, one teaspoon of it in this form will be plenty to help alleviate your pains. This is great for a lot of different pains, whether you have gout, arthritis, rheumatoidism, headaches, lower back pain, things like that, muscle aches. This works very, very well. I've had to use this quite a few times. I use this for when I have my fibro flare-ups and I'm in quite a bit of pain. It works very well for that as well. Now, of course, like with any herbal remedy, make sure that you do your research before you use this. I am not a licensed medical professional by any means. I'm just sharing what is the folk remedies, what has been passed down through the generations, that you can use out in nature to help you feel better. Thank you so much for being with me today on another herbal remedy video on how you can use some things you find around your property or around your neighborhood to help you feel better. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Share it with your friends that might be benefited from this information. And as always, I hope wherever you are, you're wonderfully blessed. So until next time, everybody, bye-bye.